Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, Force users of all ages, and welcome back to our discussion on The Rise of Skywalker. You're listening to Inside the Tauntaun, a Star Wars podcast.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Star Wars Inside the Tauntaun. This is our podcast opening song. Alyssa, Daniel, and Dino talking about Star Wars. Like and subscribe.
So who talks first? You talk first. I talk first.
I'll talk first.
Great.
So last episode, we talked at length about Palpatine, his role in the movie, then bringing him back, the implications of his return. Were we okay with it? One question we didn't...
I was okay with it.
Well, thank God for that. As long as you're happy.
That's all that matters.
One question we didn't ask that kind of has been bothering me since last we spoke was when did Palpatine have the time or the energy to date?
Oh,
Yeah,
he's got the
that's-
energy. This is like...
All the vitality.
I don't like thinking about it.
No,
Honestly,
taking
I
those-
don't like thinking about it in any capacity.
He's been taking those little Sith blue pills.
something, blue pill.
Yeah.
But like, yeah.
Yeah, that's a definite hole, and I think for a lot of people was a moment of confusion in sort of justifying having Rey be related in that to that
Right.
lineage.
Well, and it, I did a little bit of math.
Yeah.
Not too much, mind you, but
Thank
a
you.
little bit of math.
Thank you.
So if Rey was supposed to be, 19, 20 years old in Force Awakens, her parents were probably around 25, approaching 30 when they had her. That
Palpatine's
means...
sperm count is approximately...
Welcome to Inside the Sperm Bank, a podcast all about Star Wars fertility.
He's got aggressive swimmers.
Truly.
That means he did the deed shortly before the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, before the Battle of...
So we're talking original, right before A New Hope.
So he was like already like
So during
very
the events of Rogue One,
He was-
while
Yeah.
Tarkin and Vader are hunting down the rebels,
and he's like already pretty disfigured and like, you know.
oh yeah, he's gone full Palp.
Whew.
Right.
He is cute. Man.
I told you there was someone out there for you, Daniel.
Never give up.
I'm still single.
Yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of things in the Star Wars universe, you just kind of accept them,
I don't accept it.
Yeah.
or you don't accept them, and then
Right.
you're like kind of huffy about it.
You gotta fill in
But,
the blanks.
yeah,
you know?
Well, and I think.
What do you think happened?
Well, I think we're gonna get answers to that, honestly.
Oh, you do?
Ooh,
Yeah.
that'd
You think
be
that's gonna be a
awesome.
Especially with these new lines of comics that are coming out, all the storytelling that has been done through the books, and they've kind of delved a little bit into what Palpatine's up to when he's not running the government, and that he's actually he's very hands off on day-to-day running of the Empire. He kind of has his
But hands-on when it comes to dating.
oh boy.
Government official in the streets, Sith in the sheets.
Wow.
But he has kind of a council who kind of runs the government for him, and he spends a lot of time studying the dark side. He's not interested
The
in
Kama Sutra.
the Kama Sutra. He's not super interested in the levying taxes. It's
Right.
not his. He's achieved his goal,
Right.
and now he's just becoming,
He's procreating.
he's procreating.
Yeah.
He
But I'll
wants
be
a
interested to
legacy.
see
Yeah,
what
me too.
they could get kind of dark with it. I mean, you can. We won't
go
touch
there,
on it, but you could
you can
imagine.
imagine.
You know what kind of fella he is, and
the sort of power element there,
right.
and
There's some implications there.
I'm curious if you think that the making of Rey was purposeful in the sense that he was like he needed an heir, or do you think he was like, I'm in love?
Well, that's the thing. It's like Rey's his grandchild, so you know. Do we know which of? I would assume it's on her father's side.
Yes, yeah, no, I think that was
Right.
confirmed. It was
it was.
the father
Yeah,
was the
I couldn't
son
remember.
of Palpatine.
So what happened to that
Son of a
relationship?
Palpatine!
that's going to be another sort of obviously complicated father-son relationship.
Is he force sensitive? Does it skip a generation? Was she her mother
Rey's
force
mom.
sensitive?
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see what happened there, or if Palpatine was even aware he sired a son.
Yeah.
Yeah, might have been like, whoops,
Could be.
Could have been a moment, and then
Yeah, so many possibilities. But that excites me, though, to think about that we're going to get answers. Because I think that's something that Star Wars has done since the very beginning, because, the first movie was written to be the one movie.
right.
And then they've, gone back and done that, like, wonderful thing of, like, if this is true, then what else is true? And if this
Right.
is true, then what else is true? And then just, like, building the universe from there. So I think that since we got that disgusting nugget of information in this movie, they're gonna go back and do that work for us,
Right.
And create a backstory that we never knew.
Palpatine love story.
The story that we never knew we needed.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't.
Oh, maybe just
Maybe
in
not.
time for Valentine's Day 2021. It's gonna be
20% off flowers.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, wow. I can't wait for that.
Me either.
I love all Star Wars content. Even Palpatine porn. Give it to me.
So riffing off of Palpatine, like, were you happy with what Snoke ended up being? That we're still not exactly sure. I mean, he's a series of I wouldn't call them clones, but
Something
engineered
along,
beings.
something along those.
Yeah.
Because the way he was set up in Force Awakens, and again, we touched on the fact that it's pretty apparent they weren't planning on Palpatine being around.
Right.
They say they had discussions about it way back when, but it wasn't part of the official
They're
plan.
liars.
They're filthy liars.
I'm kind of wondering if like also Snoke might have been it wasn't said, but I sort of thought that maybe that he was kind of like a failed experiment, like that was maybe what he was trying to have his soul be, like, warped into, but it just didn't work.
Well, somebody suggested, and this is kind of a take on the Dark Empire graphic novels from back in the 90s, where Palpatine would insert his soul into these clone bodies, but because he was so powerful on the dark side, the clone bodies would deteriorate.
This is a good segue. We were talking about Palpatine inserting himself.
But these clone bodies would deteriorate at a much faster rate because they couldn't sustain his power.
Couldn't sustain
Daniel, get off
I'm sorry.
of it.
I'm sorry. You started this. This is your fault.
Well, it's a big part of the movie.
I bet it
Crying
is.
out
Whoa!
loud. Think of the children. So that could be what's happened here. If Snoke actually kind of is just the Palpatine vessel,
Yeah.
and the reason you see all these test tubes filled with old Snokes is that they needed to keep creating them in order to keep up with the demand of Palpatine's strength.
Yeah. That's jeez.
I'm sorry,
That is,
my mind is
that
always
is,
going to be in the gutter from this entire podcast. So, it's...
that's spooky, and I like it.
yeah, it is spooky.
Yeah.
But no, that makes actually a little more sense. I was trying to figure out like why they would need multiple clones, but yeah, maybe just because they don't last that long, so they need a fresh one every couple of years.
Right.
So
Just keep it
interesting.
fresh. Yeah.
So the fact that Snoke dies is kind of like, meh, it's all right. We got another one.
It was a step. It was a foreseen step in Palpatine's plan for Ben.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right, sure.
You could surmise that it's like,
That was meant to happen. Yeah. He was like, I want that.
and that really Palpatine was responsible for their Force bond.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do have a question about that because...
Well, he seemed like he was surprised.
Well, that's the thing. He was surprised by this dyad, this Force dyad.
And you probably wouldn't have that connection unless they were,
Right,
dyad,
and Snoke makes a point to say, it was I who bridged your minds.
Oh.
Yeah.
To Rey and Kylo in that moment. It was like, it was
about
I who
that.
bridged your minds.
Yeah, this is the hard thing when you change creative teams so drastically, is that certain little tidbits of information and layering get either completely tossed, thrown out, or they find some minor way of like working them in. But yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. So you kind of like, I mean, now that it is canon, do we just assume that, like, Palpatine through Snoke was lying? Or that...
it could be.
Or... Because, I mean, we're just assuming that Snoke is not a sentient... like being like
by himself,
Yeah.
or was he?
Yeah, or is he like is he a complete puppet of Palpatine, or is he just like a sentient being that was created by Palpatine who is like under his control, kind of?
Well, there's been a suggestion of both. I mean, again, they've released some comics recently where they kind of delve more into the relationship between Snoke and Kylo while he's training him, and you get the feeling that Snoke is kind of his own entity.
Titty.
Yes. Even going back to the origins of the First Order itself, it's kind of interesting that maybe suggest that Palpatine has been around this whole time, because Snoke kind of comes out of nowhere. The First Order was founded by, a group of Imperial officers who fled after the Civil War, and then Snoke kind of just inserts himself kind of out of nowhere. So he could just be a puppet, but his relationship with Ben is a little more colorful and nuanced. So I mean, it leaves some room for doubt, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah.
I have
if it
doubts.
weren't for he and Ben's connection, I would just veer on the edge of saying like he's a puppet.
Yeah.
But because there's that depth there, I don't know.
What do you guys think?
Tell us. One,
us,
two,
Mike.
three. Say it while
Go,
you're in your
say it.
car or at the gym.
Say it.
Just scream!
Okay, great.
We heard you.
Thanks for participating.
We're not... Oh, God.
Should we talk about MacGuffins?
MacGuffin.
MacGuffins. Okay.
What's a MacGuffin?
So I'll tell you, if you're not a filmy Star Warsy kind of person and you just randomly decided to listen to this,
Number one, rethink your life choices.
Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, first of all.
It's only my mother. That's she's the
That's
only
it.
one that's watching. Listening? Watching.
Watching us
She-
as well.
She's like, I can't see a thing. This podcast sucks.
So the term MacGuffin was sort of popularized by Alfred Hitchcock, who described it as the thing that the characters on the screen worry about, but the audience doesn't care. The film of his that kind of like gave way for this whole like theory was called The Military Secrets, and it was a thriller that was released in 1935. And it follows a London man who becomes caught up with a spy ring attempting to steal military secrets from the government. The secrets they're trying to steal are exactly that throughout the film. He just like asks the audience to like go along with like imagining what the secrets are.
This is a
But,
major spoiler alert.
Spoiler
Spoiler
alert! If you haven't seen it yet. But George Lucas felt differently about what the definition of that was, and he felt like he wanted to create things that were actually of real consequence. The first one is R2-D2, obviously, in A New Hope, and because R2 has the plans to defeat the Death Star, but he's also a central character.
Right.
And then the secrets he contained directly and specifically determined what happened in the movie.
Right.
Which is like a sort of different thing. So big Star Wars fans love to look for all of the MacGuffins that are in the films. And some fans hate the MacGuffins. And
I still don't know if I completely understand what MacGuffins are.
well, it's like
Getting from point A to point B.
yeah, getting from point A to point B, but it's generally, I mean, the like definition of them is that it's usually like an object. Like in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
It's
The idol at the beginning.
the
Oh, sure.
the Covenant or whatever.
And then the Ark of the Covenant.
and
right.
and then like in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, it's the Grail.
Sure.
You know, so it's like
Seemingly
it's
something
the
that
thing
doesn't
that's
really-
like it's the thing that's like propelling the
Sends
action
them on the journey, yes.
from happening.
Right.
Right. But nobody really cares about that. They care about the journey.
The object itself, not necessarily.
Yeah, but
I
there are a lot of people who have strong feelings on this, and people who are like, focus, please, for the love of God, like focus less on the MacGuffins
Well,
and more on just the actual stuff that's happening within the character and the hero journey.
MacGuffins is also a delicious cereal.
Yes.
But that was kind of the...
Brought to you by Kellogg's.
Well, that was kind of one of the biggest complaints of people had about Rise of Skywalker, is that it was a movie chock full of MacGuffins and not much
And not
else
much other plot
in between.
Yeah. Similar to The Last Jedi in that respect. I mean, I think like Rose and Finn,
the
like
side quest,
going on
Canto Bite.
the strange journey that they went on for 3/4 of the film.
Yeah.
to find the code
15,
breaker.
20
But
minutes.
yeah, ultimately the Rise of Skywalker has like 4 main MacGuffins that all like connect with each other,
Tell
is like-
me what they are.
which is like kind of cool, but also at the on the same end of the stick or same token or whatever, what have you.
Damn
That's not really why we're watching the movie.
No,
I think it's become like a fun like extra thing for fans to look for when watching the films.
Sure.
well, and I'd mentioned it in our first conversation. There's 2 kinds of ambiguity. There's the kind that leaves the audience asking meaningful questions.
Mm-hmm.
Allows you to kind of play a cool fill in the blank, allow your imagination to run, and that's what the original films
Correct.
were so wonderful at, is that you had so many questions about the galaxy as a whole outside of the context of just these. Oh, ding.
Dino's very popular. He's getting a text.
It's all your fan mail.
Oh my gosh.
Ding!
Ding.
Clang, clang with the trolley.
Yeah, the sort of sequence of MacGuffins in Rise of Skywalker are number 1, the Sith dagger
Oh, right, yes.
that will help find number 2, Wayfinder,
Mm-hmm.
that will help get to 3, Exegol,
Right.
that will enable the heroes to blow up the 4 tower and save the galaxy. So those are like that's the big. Those are the.
That's the thing. So like, there's the ambiguity where you have, meaningful questions. Then there's the ambiguity where it's like, we should have known that. But
Yeah,
we
yeah,
never
sure.
really got a.
Sure. And that's
An
and that
answer.
and that I think is so much with the direction of these
Yeah.
films, because the sort of secrets or the things that we're not hearing or seeing from characters, that's all in the direction
Right.
of a film, right? So a lot of people criticize Last Jedi for that like whole storyline, because it's like, okay, well, we could have had some more urgency underneath that whole entire quest.
Yeah, like
maybe not.
like hunting for the code breaker, but then
But then
kind of shoehorning in a commentary about
all the
wealth
like,
gap and
the politics and
which is not
social scene.
unimportant, but it felt just so
Extra?
well. Yeah, I mean,
well, and
kind of shoehorned. And
and the idea of putting multiple MacGuffins in one film is something new as well.
Yeah.
Because like George Lucas liked, and like the old filmmakers and stuff, like they like to have the one thing that was like, oh, that's super great. Like I love that R2-D2 is that for A New Hope.
Right.
You know, and then he becomes like this lovable character that we like also root for, even though really like his purpose in the film was that he had the plans for the Death Star.
Right.
So
he is the New Hope.
There he is it. I read this article that this guy called Frederick Riberson or Reberson. Friedrich. And he had some really cool things to say, but I really liked this part, and I want to know what you guys think about it.
Tell me all about it.
I'll tell you.
I'm so excited.
So he says, we have a flawed hero who is willing to suffer in order to grow and do the right thing. Luke does not waste his time chasing MacGuffins. He has one and wants to protect it, and then wants to grow in power to take on more responsibility. Maybe that is an inspiration to all of us. Grow, become more responsible, be willing to pay the price, lose our fears. And how do we know what our goal is? Maybe a start is checking whether any of our goals are MacGuffins or actually feel important in our lives.
Ooh, that's
so I kind of like
interesting.
that, because that's, getting to the meat of like
Search
why.
for the MacGuffins in your life, everybody.
Yeah, if it's like mostly MacGuffins going on, like
You're
figure it
missing
out.
the bigger picture.
You're missing the
man.
bigger picture,
Yeah.
which is like the actual journey.
Has my whole life been a MacGuffin?
Well, think about it. We're actors, so
Oh my God.
what are our milestones? Like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
it could be booking a role in a theater production be a MacGuffin when your
Is
mind
it-
should be on, booking a very specific project when your mind should be on, kind of the totality of your art making.
Is a paycheck a MacGuffin?
Yeah.
Oh,
Totally.
Couldn't it? Yeah.
Totally could
If
be.
working
Okay.
paycheck to paycheck. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, and
Well, I was gonna say that like with the Canto Bite business, like I think that in a sense, a lot of the times maybe MacGuffins are just a vehicle to get the movie's theme across.
Sure.
And like for that movie, there were multiple MacGuffins, but like that one in particular, I think all of them were kind of trying to drive that theme home of failures teach us
sure.
To be better, I guess.
Yeah.
I think the problem with just the copious amounts of them in this film was
Yes.
I'm thinking specifically of the dagger, the
Yes.
Sith dagger
Yeah.
that was used to kill her parents, and it had imbued in it, or included in it basically a map to where on the
Goonies.
wreckage of the Death Star
Yep, right.
is the room in which the second Wayfinder can be found.
Mm-hmm.
And I am totally for suspension of disbelief
Sure.
to a point.
Sure.
But at that point in the movie where she just holds it up and
Yeah. It just
finds the
felt,
exact spot,
It felt a little.
I was like, this is wild.
It felt.
Goonies never say die.
It felt
Pointing to a room that does not actually exist, or it didn't prior to.
Right.
Oh well, he used the dark side to
okay.
shield us
You're right, I
from
forgot.
seeing it.
I forgot. You're right.
Remember that conversation.
Yes.
Oh God.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that too, it's like one thing leads to another thing leads to another
Well,
thing. It's just like.
The answers were so convenient that was just.
And that's okay, because that is like Star Wars.
Well, that's
again.
that's fun movies in general. It's like You could point that out in a lot of movies we enjoy,
But I think
As
that
long as but
that
that's like really honestly, the MacGuffins don't have to be interesting as long as the journey to get to them is
Correct.
great.
Right.
Really, and like you,
But then
like,
at
you
the-
brought
but then
up like Monty Python, like
Right.
It's the journey to the Grail
Mhm.
is the best part.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think if people, I'm, unless it's R2D2, because I think I love R2.
I do too.
But yeah, generally speaking, Rise of Sky,
Generally, Leia Organa speaking.
General Organa speaking, I don't know that like we needed that many things.
we certainly didn't.
And I don't know, and I don't think, not I don't know, I don't think that they served the journey of the film. So, yeah. So that
Interesting.
Yeah, those
Very
are those are
interesting
MacGuffins.
indeed. I love MacGuffin cereal. It's delicious and
sure.
nutritious.
So, kind of diving into, I don't know. I think the thing that has kind of struck me in the month since we saw it
Where did it strike you?
everywhere,
Right in the MacGuffin.
right in the MacGuffin. There was no real discussion of Luke's legacy,
Yeah.
which was such the selling point of the end of Last Jedi, is that Luke finally plays his part in this miraculous display that ends up killing him. So, killing him.
And this is the end to the Skywalker saga. That's
Right.
how they're sort of like marketing
But
it.
the Battle of Crate, he shows up and
Right.
this immense display. And it was always curious to me that the Resistance, they put out the call, they heard it, the people on the other end heard it, but no one came. But when they show up at the end with this giant fleet of, it was confirmed, 14,000 ships at the end of
No big deal.
Rise of Skywalker. It's like, glad you're here.
They needed
Where
Lando.
Why?
were ya?
Well, where
Why
were
now?
you and why?
They needed Lando. That's what it was. Lando is very persuasive.
And that may be, but the whole point of them showing up is that they gained the courage. They saw Kylo Ren could bleed. They saw the the First Order could bleed because of what Luke attempted, and there was not even so much as a line saying, indicating that Skywalker was the influence that pushed this galaxy-wide rebellion. So that
No, I think that Lando literally walked up to every one of those 14,000 people and just said,
Hello, what have we here?
and they were like, okay.
I'll take that explanation.
Oh, justification, Judy, over here.
I'm here for you.
Yeah, no, that
I'm
would have
here.
been really cool.
It would have been
And
cool.
I think it would have been really special to the legacy of Luke.
It just felt like he was kind of forgotten in his own
It felt
story.
like that.
And not that
I was surprised at how little he was utilized.
the story,
Yeah.
it is no longer about him, and I accept that.
Totally.
It's
Totally.
Rey's story, but the role he plays in it was
Pivotal.
not what I. It's pivotal, but not what I. Maybe.
But it was
they-
short.
Maybe they chased one less MacGuffin, and
And spent more time with that.
right.
Yeah, because like she was like, because it was interesting because like I think if the movie was 2 movies, we might have had a little more time because I think it would have been cool to see her kind of like almost go, because that's what it was sort of seeming like what was going to happen, is that she was going to sort of become like Luke Skywalker and become a recluse,
Right.
and just forget about the Force, and but then he was there to immediately snap out of it, and. Yeah, I think that if they spent a little more time with that, it might have been a little more meaningful, maybe.
Well, and there were of course some logic leaps even in that scene where he pulls the Yoda and raises the X-wing out of the water.
Right.
Then it works.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
He
I mean,
used
just like
the Force. The
just like it
Force
did
can
in
do a
Empire.
lot of things.
I mean, I would assume Rey fixed it like Luke did in Empire, but
Well, and
right before
she
he
is
left,
a
but-
very talented engineer, apparently. So
well,
Yeah.
I
we
believe it.
got that in the Force Awakens, because she goes around picking for
Right, scavenging.
scavenging.
mhm.
She's got parts probably just in her purse, ready to go.
Why does she have a purse?
It's more like a
She
side.
doesn't. It's a spiritual person.
It's more like a handbag.
It's more like a side
It's
strap,
Europe-
like
it's
a
European.
burlap sack.
A sensible clutch.
So I don't know. I wish Luke had cast more of a shadow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would have been special.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked that a lot.
And are we? What was I thinking?
Are we dead?
Are we? Are we dead?
No, this is real.
Oh my God! This is happening still. Wow. Hello there. Well, hello there.
Another aspect that has bothered me throughout the sequel movies is Hux.
Mm-hmm.
I love Domhnall Gleeson, great actor.
There's a but.
The First Order, they're fascists,
Yeah.
and like these are supposed to be the most radical of the people who were left over from the Empire, who are going to remake it into this leaner, meaner version of the Empire without the bureaucracy. These are just scary people.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of started happening in Last Jedi, where he became kind of a comic book cartoon.
Right.
He did, and he became like a punchline.
It was a punchline
Yeah.
for Kylo's rage, kind of stomping his feet, not getting his way. Which it's an interesting approach to take, because he is still a young man, and he comes, again, this is touched on in kind of the expanded novels. Yeah, he's the son of Brendel Hux, who was basically the head of the Imperial Training Academy, and was also responsible for the First Order's child soldier program.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a kid screwed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And
he
he's
has-
the son, and he's probably maybe not super qualified.
Well,
you know, so he's probably
he's really
overcompensating
insecure.
hardcore. Yeah.
He's really insecure, which is a new flavor for your standard Imperial.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care about him being a turncoat, and then he was like, I didn't get my way, so...
It felt to me...
It was abrupt, for sure.
Yeah.
It felt to me like it was something that they, like, knew audiences were responding to.
Yeah.
And so then they just, like, kept going with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he could have been written a very different way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess, so you would have rather have seen him, like, just go balls deep. And,
less of a punchline and more of a frightening figure with those crippling insecurities.
Sure.
Yeah, that's more interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, in the grand scheme of things, he's not a vital piece of the puzzle. But I remember on my rewatch, I was, this is a guy.
A missed opportunity.
This is a guy who's trying to be like a Tarkin. He's trying to wield this immense power, trying to usurp Kylo Ren as the head of the First Order, but he has limitations, and he and Kylo are both aware of them. And it would have been cool to maybe mine into that a little more, but his brand of humor, not the comedy itself, but that particular brand that they kind of slapped on him, felt out of place as far as like Star Wars humor goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it felt out of place with him.
Yeah.
Given who he is and like what the background is.
Like
that's sort of
he was almost in another movie. That everybody else
it was
kinda...
just.
Yeah, it felt put on. It didn't feel intentional.
Well, I think
guess.
back to that first scene of The Last Jedi where Poe is attacking the dreadnought they bring in to blow up the planet, or blow up the base, the Resistance base, and Poe is basically on a phone call with Hux, and makes fun of his mother and stuff. And
right.
it's like, it was funny in the moment, but I don't know if that. I know what Rian Johnson was doing. He's kind of turning it on its head. It's like, this isn't so serious.
Yeah, right.
But that kind of set the tone for kind of sequel trilogy, kind of throughout the sequel trilogy, where it's just, or at least these last two movies, where there's just some comedy bits that are things in general that kind of feel out of place
Sure.
to what we know and love.
And it's interesting because I look back on the old trilogy, and that was just like a whimsical adventure that was that I think was a little it's some farcical in some ways, I guess, because it was just so over the top and crazy. But then like the prequel trilogy then like took itself way too seriously. I mean,
Much to its detriment.
Yeah,
because
totally.
but then like when they did have like touches of comedy in there, it like
Yeah, Jar Jar rubbed adults the wrong way. I mean, I think
and the the droids like having their little like wisecracks and stuff like that was just like it didn't fit because it felt like it was in a different movie because like the rest of the movie was completely
it was.
like super ultra serious. We're talking about politics. This is not funny. And then all of a sudden you have this like So I think maybe in that sense, I think I can understand like so with this new trilogy, at some parts it feels like it's taking itself super serious.
Well, and I mean, it's interesting you bring up that point because when I watch the prequels now, something still just will forever bother me.
Not work.
But those things feel less out of place now. So I'm thinking maybe, when we watch Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker with new eyes 10 to 15 years from now, maybe then that just becomes the reality of Star Wars.
Our eyeballs will be
we'll
digital by
accept
then.
that is now a part of Star Wars.
Could be.
And it's just broadening our
Yeah.
our palette.
Well, so much of just film in general is being able to very neatly have the tone match.
Mm-hmm.
Even if there are, other jokes that live within it or darker stuff, sort of more serious stuff, if it all is in this sort of like similar of a tone bubble, like I think we're generally like, yeah, we're here for it. But
and that probably has a lot to do, I think, with what you were saying before about having a
different creative team,
creative team throughout. Yeah,
That's exactly it.
because they have their obviously they're different human beings. They have different ideas of everything.
Yeah. Well,
what sort of umbrella that specific movie lives under.
And like I think the Empire has a much different vibe.
Right, at the tone, I mean, that's exactly right. At the time, people were like, this is dark. Like this, the happy-go-lucky New Hope, our merry band of rebels. I mean, they're getting effed up. And Empire Strikes Back
We're losing
from
body parts now
from start to end.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just kind of one loss after another.
Yeah. And then we got back to Ewoks and fun time. And
that's right. To a degree,
jokes and
they inserted that definitely to counterbalance Empire, but then the
then
last 20 minutes
Ewoks-
of that movie are like, whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing like Ewoks and Jar Jar.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lot of people are like, whoa, those don't fit here.
Yeah.
But like, some people absolutely love them. Same thing with Jar Jar. Like, as a kid, like, I didn't think Jar Jar was annoying at all.
No, he was
he
developed
was-
for kids. George Lucas said
Right.
that out
Yeah,
loud, and we refused to listen to him.
Well, and I think part of it too is that like we were kids when the original trilogy came out, and then we were still kids-ish when the prequels came out. And I think that since we've like grown up with Star Wars, that we kind of expect Star Wars to grow up with us, but like it's still really meant for families. And
Well, it's
kids,
a
too.
children's fairy tale.
Totally.
Those are from George Lucas's lips. It is a fairy tale.
He said that.
He said these things. But Star Wars, and maybe that's why I'm reading a little too much into it right now, or letting things bother me that maybe shouldn't, because I'm not looking at it through the prism of...
You gonna cry about it? You gonna cry?
But Star Wars reinvents itself for each new generation. Everybody, I think it was, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni had said this during the making of Mandalorian, that there are so many different flavors of Star Wars, and everyone has...
Strawberry, lemon,
MacGuffin.
Oh my god. What do you think it tastes like? Is that like wheat? Is it a wheat cereal or like a
bland,
corn cereal?
predictable.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, just like a
Cornflake.
flax
Yeah,
cracker.
It's a flax cracker. That's all life is, moving from one flax cracker to another.
Whoa, this got depressing.
But everybody has a different way they consume Star Wars.
Totally,
And,
totally.
We're kind of coming out of, well, since the sequel trilogy began, the kind of generation before us was the Clone Wars generation, where the Star Wars they took in what was the animated Clone Wars series. And
Right.
That's why they love Ahsoka Tano and these characters that initially adults like us were not me personally. We're like,
Yeah.
who is this?
Who cares?
Who is?
Yeah.
What is this little pet project? These people are not important. Those movies have single-handedly saved the prequel. Or I'm sorry, that
Absolutely.
series has single-handedly saved the prequel.
I was just, it's funny because I was mentioning the droids.
Yeah.
They're funny now. I guess I'm watching the
Yeah.
Clone Wars right now, and I'm like, haha, that's
I don't know
funny.
why we accept it more.
Maybe it's because it's a cartoon. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's just that the lens through which we view it.
Yeah.
But
But they seem like they're almost more sentient
Yeah.
than they were.
so I'd be curious, like 20 years from now, to sit down with somebody who was 8 or 9 years old seeing The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker in theaters, and that being kind
Their
of their
first.
Well, I can tell you
yeah.
that my nephews are obsessed.
that they light up about it.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is awesome. Which is just awesome.
Yeah, that's how we
Yeah.
felt.
Yeah.
And so
Force Awakens was their favorite, allegedly.
I think that was all our. I mean,
Yeah.
the anticipation for that was
Mm-hmm.
unbearable.
Mm-hmm. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
that was so thrilling. That was so thrilling as an adult to be in the theater as well, and to
Yeah.
have the main title and like the opening credits
And
start, and have the
everything
whole
just
entire
floods back.
theater erupting,
Yeah,
And
every
just
memory
to-
you ever had just
Yeah.
floats back into your.
which is so incredible and special that it is such an important thing to so many people.
What a time to be alive.
Totally.
I know, it really is a golden age. It feels like, I know it feels like, because a very vocal minority just is already tired of Kathleen Kennedy and the idea of Disney, but we're very much in a golden age of Star Wars in that we have so much of it to consume in so many different mediums.
Content.
Absolutely.
Daniel's favorite word.
And because
I love
there's so
content.
much of it, and we chatted about this last episode or 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
I think it was 12 episodes
12.
ago.
We've already done 12. Just that because there is so much, there are going to be good movies with like kind of lame parts,
Yeah.
and there's going to be lame movies with kind of good with really
Yeah.
good parts.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And for me, like, I don't care because it's still
No.
to me, I'm like, we're so lucky that we get to be in a time where there is so much being created.
If
and
you're
made.
somebody who left the theater just hating Rise of Skywalker, you could go home right now and turn on The Mandalorian. on
Absolutely,
Disney
and
Plus.
have that be amazing
or
for
crack
you,
open
or
the comics that
Mhm.
that
read any of the canon books.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, totally. So that's amazing. Do you have any
That's
other? Do
amazing.
you have any other words about the Rise of Skywalker?
The Rose.
The
Ross.
Rise of
R-O-S.
Skywalker. I would suppose ranking it in
And ranking it? Sorry, there was a
that,
musical
that
theater
wasn't
joke.
even a good one.
That's a really terrible musical theater joke. I'm sorry.
My God.
But you laughed.
Um,
You liked it. I love.
It has a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes right
Yeah.
now.
What does?
Rise of
Rise of
Skywalker.
Skywalker.
Oh
which
my
is,
God.
Which is the lowest in the entire trilogy if you're not counting the Clone Wars film, which we're not.
We're not.
We're not.
We're not.
counting it.
All right.
Do you think it deserves that designation? And keep in mind, they also have a revamped like fan ranking system on there, or audience member that you have to prove you
Saw the
actually
movie.
bought a ticket. So and it has an 86%
Oh, that's good.
Okay, so the
favorability.
audience voted
Audience
86.
generally liked it.
Yeah.
Do you
I-
think that is a 52% movie?
I think as a reviewer, I get it. you know?
Well, because they don't review them in correlation with any of the other films.
No.
Yeah.
So it's just them doing it
It's
as
a
a
positive or
standalone,
negative feeling about it.
standalone film.
Yeah,
It's just an aggregate of positive and
and
negative.
of course, the end of the entire saga is not going to be a standalone film.
Yeah.
I just don't think.
No.
I don't think there's any way.
Well, I mean that being said though, you know, Return of the King was
Yeah.
an incredible film. And that was the last of, you know, the series, and
But it couldn't have come without the other two.
true. It wouldn't
That's
have had the same emotional
wouldn't have the same
effect
impact.
for
Yeah.
sure. But
I mean-
but even as a standalone film by itself,
Yes.
like it's,
Well, I think of. Well, I think Return of the King is amazing on its own, but it definitely could not be a good movie without the other two. I think of Avengers Endgame, which came out this year, which is quite literally a greatest hits mashup. of
totally.
Everything that came
The
before.
mega mix.
But it's maybe the greatest superhero movie of all time.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean anything without
Right.
all the other
all
films.
the other things.
Right. So it
So,
has to
you know,
be
actually,
judged
that's
in
interesting.
relation to the others.
Because I feel like I do have a friend that like jumped into Marvel, like, which I'm like, how is that possible? And has only seen
Only seen Endgame
I think, or the last two films.
or
Right?
Infinity War.
Yeah,
I mean,
Infinity
they're
War and
well
Endgame.
acted and they're fun to watch,
Sure,
but
they're
I don't
still
know how
fun,
you
but
could
you
have.
wouldn't.
You definitely
it
would have the
wouldn't-
same emotional impact for
It just
sure.
wouldn't mean anything.
Well, when you have
so
22 movies and all these relationships that have come and gone, and then they all come to the forefront at once. I mean, it is completely and utterly reliant on everything that came before.
Yeah.
That being said, so why was Rise of Skywalker given a 52 in the first place? And
I think
do you think it deserves that?
I don't think it deserves that. I don't think it deserves that. And
I mean, keep in mind, lower than Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
At this
No,
point.
I don't. Obviously, I don't.
Yeah,
And-
I don't think it deserves lower than Phantom Menace. I think that I understand why reviewers rated it as well, because again, it's not rated like you know, everybody gave it as an average of 52%, and like it's always like either they liked it or they didn't.
Right,
And
there's
so,
not a ton of room for nuance.
yeah, so
Yeah.
52% of the people didn't like it, or you know, or they 52% liked it, and then the other percent didn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that even and also they could be like, no, I liked it. It was disappointing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that could still be considered a negative review.
Sure.
You know?
Which is, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of the camp I'm in. It's like,
Yeah.
I liked the resolve for Rey,
Mhm.
who is the most important thing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, as a movie, I was kind of disappointed. But I don't know if that puts me in the positive or negative category of.
Well, yeah, and I think that maybe that's why the Rotten
That's why
Tomatoes
it
score
is
could
that-
also
it is
be
that
very
score.
confused. I think.
Well,
it is.
that raises the broader question of, are we putting way too much weight on Rotten Tomatoes? Because look
yeah.
at what happened with Last Jedi, where
Uh-huh.
critics gave it 94, I think it has
Right.
now.
And it was
And
like
audience
the
had,
audience
like,
was like
43.
40. Yeah. Yeah.
Hated
So,
it.
yeah. So I don't think it deserves that score, but also I've never been a big ol' huge Rotten Tomatoes
I mean, I gotta tell you though, this is like we're not sponsored by Rotten Tomatoes,
No,
by the
not
way.
at all.
But I was gonna say that like I've tried to go against the grain with Rotten Tomatoes like numerous times, and I think if it's below like 65%, and I'm not super interested in the subject matter, I will hate the film.
Yeah, I've started, especially if I don't see a movie on opening night. I try not to look. This is a recent development. I try not to look at the score before I
yeah.
see it because I
I
don't.
don't want your
I
don't want your
have to. Movie tickets are like
No.
$4 million now.
But-
I can't waste $20.
I don't know. I've
on
kind
a
of
movie that's
developed.
gonna make me like.
You need to get the AMC membership.
Oh, I know, you're right. Oh my god, also not our sponsor.
Not sponsored at all, but I don't have it either.
Although
but
if you want to give me a free membership, you're
but my sister
totally
has
welcome
it,
to.
and it's like $30 a month, and you can see a movie every single day.
Oh my god. What am I doing here for?
But like,
So, anyways,
I
buy
don't
that.
know. I don't think the Rotten Tomatoes score is as valuable anymore because I don't know. I've kind of learned to prejudge movies myself, and that's like I could tell you by the trailer. Not always, but I could tell you by the trailer if that's falling under 60%.
Yeah, generally.
Oof, it's hard. Those some of those trailers, they really get you.
Well, there's some great mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although
smart editing, smart peeps.
I think trailers though now need to be refreshed again because a lot of the people
Stop telling us what happens.
Oh
yeah,
God!
There's too much in the
Well,
trailers.
yes.
That's a whole other
That's
episode,
for sure.
honestly.
But also because they're using a lot of the same tactics. Like I'm seeing the same thing over and over again. Like
with the Hans Zimmer drum in the back, kind of that
yes.
droning music,
or the slow version of like an old song, like
sung in a whispery tone.
I see skies of blue.
As someone's getting like murdered.
Clouds
Why is it always that
Next
song?
summer.
Honestly,
I don't know. But
What a wonderful prepare to die.
yeah, it's like really spooky, and you're like, okay, all right.
yeah, it is always.
Wow, this is a moody
This
movie.
is
It's
moody.
gonna be so spooky.
What a wonderful world, but not.
Yeah, there's gonna be some.
So I don't know. I think the moral of the story is maybe don't let societal expectations
For sure.
dictate what that movie experience will be like.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
And if it's not the one for you, just like you said,
There's so much Star
don't
Wars.
give
We're
up
so lucky.
on the Star Wars stories because there's Rebels is amazing, Clone Wars. I'm so excited to start
oh
Clone
my God,
Wars.
it's so good.
yeah, coming back.
Mandalorian. There's
There's a lot in the pipe.
so much going on. So,
Mhm.
well, awesome. I feel better about that now that we chatted.
We
more.
got that movie off our chest,
It's
Yes.
off my boobs.
and
Yes.
perhaps we'll be less critical as time goes on. I'll be curious
Yeah,
to see.
we'll watch it again, like when it comes out on Blu-ray, and see how we feel then,
I love
and
that
report
idea.
back.
We'll report back to you.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for listening. This is Inside the Tauntaun Star Wars podcast.
It's
I'm-
getting so hot in this Tauntaun. I
It
gotta
is
get
so
out of here.
hot.
Oh.
Sticky.
Yes, I'm Alyssa,
I'm Daniel.
I'm Dino.
and thanks for listening. May the Force be with you.
Always.